Some very exciting news came across my desk yesterday around noon, and I picked up the phone and I called Senator Mike Lee because I wanted to know more about it, and he joins us here. There is a chance that we not just stop Obamacare, but actually stand for the Constitution, which is the really important thing. This is not just a challenge to Obamacare. This is a stand for the Constitution because the president is playing fast and loose with the Constitution on the way Obamacare is now being changed. And Senator, before I walk out the door to go give the keynote speech for CUFI tonight here in Washington, I wanted to just say thank you and also ask you, do you think there's a real chance that this actually works? And I don't mean just because it's going up against the president and the Democrats, but you're also going to be taking shots from the John McCains of the world.
Yes, I do think there's a real chance, and the chance comes not because of the elected politicians, but because of those who they work for, those who voted them into office. When those people, the people across this great land of ours, start to realize what's happening, they're going to start calling in to their senators and their congressmen, and they're going to say, please don't do this. We elected you to fight Obamacare. We elected you to repeal Obamacare. We elected you to do whatever you can to stop this horrible law. So don't fund it. As soon as that starts happening, that's where we win.
Okay.
And
so let's
explain.
I
can't
explain.
Emphasize enough the fact that we can win this.
Okay, so let's go back up and tell the story from the very beginning on what you are trying to do and what you need the people to do.
Okay, so what we're trying to do is we're trying to say, look, we're willing to fund the government. We have to fund the government through appropriations measures. In recent years, we've funded the government's operations through an annual piece of legislation, sometimes biannual, called the continuing resolution. The continuing resolution that we have intact right now expires on September 30th, which means to keep the government functioning between now and September 30th, we have to pass something to keep it going. And what I'm saying is that we want all members of Congress in both houses, those who say they oppose Obamacare, need to say, I will vote for a continuing resolution if, and here's the important part, only if, it contains a carve-out saying none of this money will be used to fund the further implementation and enforcement of Obamacare. In order for that law to kick in order for it to be enforced and enforceable on January 1st, 2014, Congress has to fund it. And that means Republicans in both houses of Congress are going to be needed for that vote. And if all Republicans just say, look, I'm not funding it, I'm not funding any of it without a carve-out for Obamacare, if Republicans are willing to do that, we can stop it. But this is our last shot, our last chance, and we have to take it.
I'm really excited about the possibilities here. I mean, I wonder, I just took a quick look over the Senate, and you have 45 Republicans. You need to get over 50. You have you have a few Democrats running for re-election, in Alaska, Landrieu, Pryor, a few different possibilities that maybe you could pick off a few in tight states for them. But it's going to be a tough road, and especially when you see not only as you have Susan Collins and some Republicans that are difficult, but John McCain pretty much came out today and said he wasn't going down this road. Do you really think you can get over 50, and how does that happen?
Well, first of all, remember that in order to get most pieces of legislation, big, significant pieces of legislation through the Senate, you actually need 60. And so what we've got to do is be able to hold 41 to prevent 60 from getting behind any particular bill that funds Obamacare. And so, yeah, I do think we can get there. It's going to be tough, but I think we can get there. And the reason is the American people aren't going to tolerate the president trying to rewrite Obamacare, not just once, but twice, which he doesn't have the power to do. They're not going to tolerate the president saying, I'm going to throw a big bone to big business because I'm going to exempt them from the employer mandate. But meanwhile, I'm going to make the individuals comply. I'm going to force hardworking Americans, moms and dads, to comply with Obamacare's exacting demands. And if they don't, well, we're going to penalize them heavily under this law. The American people aren't going to put up with that. Setting aside the rule of law problem of the president arrogating to himself the power to legislate, which he doesn't have, this is an unfair, selective implementation. The American people aren't going to put up with it. The president has said he's not going to implement it, and the American people shouldn't be required to fund it.
And Senator, isn't this a kind of a continuation of something that seems to be going on a lot, which is the government almost having veto rights on things that pass. I mean, you have the same thing happen with Prop 8 in the Supreme Court, where you have people pass an amendment and the government can decide not to defend it. And here you have laws that are duly passed. They go through the system, and the president decides, well, this part of the law I no longer like, so we won't be doing that one. And this one over here, this one looks okay, and we'll enforce that. That's an unconstitutional and very disturbing trend, isn't it?
It is a very unconstitutional trend. It is a very disturbing trend. He manifestly lacks that power. The president does have the power to veto, but that's something that can be exercised once, and it's a binary choice. He either vetoes the whole thing or he signs the whole thing. This law, the president signed. He signed it in its entirety because that was his only choice. He doesn't have the power after the fact to go back and amend it on his own. That's unconstitutional. Unfortunately, this is a disturbing trend. It's a trend we've seen with this president, in this law, and in other areas. It's a trend that, with respect to Obamacare, was actually started by the Supreme Court of the United States when last year it amended Obamacare not just once, but twice in order to save it, for the reasons I explained in my book, Why John Roberts Was Wrong About Health Care. This is a bad trend that we've got to stop. And it's a very unpopular law, and we've got to refuse to fund it. We have until September 30th, about 70 days to do this. But the American people need to help us, and so I invite all of your viewers, all of your listeners, to join us in this cause. Help us defund Obamacare.
Senator Lee, thank you so much. You're doing a lot of great work there. Senator Lee and also Glenn Beck in D.C. Thanks a lot. More in a second.
Thank you.